Hey dolls, welcome back to your royal BFF, the People's Duchess. Thank you so much for being here. Man, welcome one, welcome all. So before I get started today, I want to make a point of clarification from the last video. There has been so much kerfuffle since the last video regarding that trip, and I want to get into it. But first, I also need to announce that this is OBS. We're back on the OBS nonsense. I'm giving OBS another chance just because StreamYards makes a whole lot of like updates and various things that I don't really like, or I'm trying to find out like what else I can do to have as a backup when I need to like figure out if these current set of updates are something that are feasible for me and my channel. So we're back on we're back on OBS. So if you see some nonsense going on with the with what you're seeing on the screen, just know that I am working it out. I am working it out, but me and OBS right now have like a really good relationship. So hopefully it'll be all right. Hey guys, joining us. Hey Binga. Hey John Jenkins. Happy 4th to all who celebrate, of course. Good to see you guys. Hope you're having a wonderful weekend. Yeah, so we are back on OBS and I'm excited. So far, so good. We're not experiencing any technical difficulties, but I'll let you know. And let me know if there's anything with like my volume or, you know, anything that you guys can't hear or see or anything like that, okay? Thank you so very much. So, look, I know it was surprising to hear my stance on Birmingham Invictus, but if you've been watching my channel, let me turn my mic up a little bit. I think I can't really hear myself, so let me know how my mic sounds on your end. So if you've been watching my channel, you know that whenever there is principle, right, that I have to stand on, I'm gonna stand on that principle. I feel this way about the Invictus Games in Birmingham. I also voiced my unpopular opinion about their titles last year, or was that 2 years ago now? I am of the opinion that those titles are more of an albatross around their necks than anything else. I feel like those titles shackle them not only to the present day institution and that nonsense, but everything that that institution stands for, which is not positive for millions of people's perspectives, including mine. Let's see, you sound great. Okay, thank you, John. I appreciate that. Yeah, so many people do not view those titles as anything to write home about. We don't share the enthusiasm for the colonial past and feel that the titles, any titles really, whether it's an OBE or an MBE or whatever, are just completely inappropriate in a modern society where you're trying to build equity and trust. And how I wish they would just go by their Nigerian titles instead. Those ones have been earned. Those ones are titles that reflect the proud nature of why you have them. They are merit-based. They're, you know, all the things. So I think that the Nigerian titles would serve them much better just based on that principle there. So I've often had to put my money where my mouth is and stand on principle. And when that principle stands in contrast to what Harry and Meghan are doing, you know, that's going to be that. I mean, it is what it is, right? But the day came and I did find myself questioning like, oh man, this is going to be tough. Like, what are we going to do? And for that, there's no clarification needed. I'm the same person today that I've always been. And I really thank you guys for seeing that in me and coming back time and time again to this channel to kiki and sip delicious cocktails while we watch the monarchy burn. I do pride myself, however, on being a scientist at heart and going purely off of objective fact and not feelings. So in that case, I'm really proud to stand on that business. But I do want to clarify that I got a crazy amount of commentary from random people that are not like the normal hater or bot accounts. I got comments from like regular, what I consider regular people with real accounts anyways, saying that, oh, perhaps this is a scheme that Todd and Harry set up to come to us with the bull-ish. And this is where I want to address something and clarify and make it extremely clear. When it comes to our cousin Henrold and us, that is between our cousin and us. But make no mistake, if you attempt to initiate that beef between our cousin and us, then we're going to have a problem. So don't do that. Okay? Save the fake righteous indignation, save the fake morality, save the better than thou, the how the mighty have fallen fakery, like just save it. One thing I've learned through all of this is that though I may not agree with the Sussex's decision to go to the UK for the Birmingham Games, the one thing I will do is support them through it. There will never come a day where my opinion diverges so much that I say, I'm going to put that down altogether. The Sussexes are in the lexicon for me. They're like the Obamas. They're like Kamala Harris. They're like Sade. They're like Beyonce. They are as deeply ingrained in my consciousness and in my decision-making process as my project management background or my bachelor's degree in psychology. Like, they are just ingrained. There are some things that I say every day, and when I consider where I got them from, like the origins, it traces back to Harry and Meghan. Till today, there are several members of my family who use Meghan as a barometer to the character of the person that they're engaging with, that they're talking to. I remember years ago, we had this conversation just after the documentary released, and I'm telling them that what I've seen over the years and how it all correlates, the Venn diagram basically of people who have a visceral reaction to Megan Sussex or Beyonce or Michelle Obama, etc., are also people who tend to think very highly of individuals like the current president or Charlie Kirk, for example. Like, there's a certain type, and it's always an underlying why they're saying that, why they're doing that, why they don't like these people. The underlying thing that they never want to admit can be seen clearly when you see who they actually do like. And so you have these people who are able to conceal their hatred in their religious practices or political practices or whatever the case might be. But when it comes to Princess Meghan, there are triggers in these people that they cannot conceal, no matter how hard they try. So if you know like a seemingly shy, like quiet person, and they like casually, or if you like casually bring up Meghan around them, just gauge their reaction. Gauge that reaction, because it'll really tell you like everything that you need to know. I'm trying to get the music to, I don't want it to be too loud. Okay, there it is. Okay. I'm just checking. There's like all these notifications too that come on the streams. Oh, whatever. I don't know what that is. It's just giving me all these like messages. I'm like, dude, seriously, just leave me, like, don't give me no messages, YouTube. Okay. I don't know how to fix them on OBS. But anyways, no, for sure, bringing up Meghan around anyone will definitely tell you who that person is. It is such a good barometer to gauge whether or not that person is worth a damn. So basically, in light of today's announcement that that Princess Meghan and the children are no longer going, they're going to sit this one out, it just reaffirms that they're actually playing 4D chess to everyone else's checkers. Hey, Cookies and Cream, welcome to the chat. Happy Saturday and nice to see you. So glad you're here. Let's see. Binga says, when you are othered, the title is earned. They hard fighting and continue to fight and not being erased. Black history is being revised all over the world. Amen to that. And I totally agree. It's just a matter of like, okay, well, what are you actually going to do with those titles, right? It's like representing the crown still. So I don't know. I don't really like that. But yeah, in light of today's announcement that they're sitting out, for me, it really just does reaffirm that they're playing 4D chess to everyone else's checkers. Hell, to everyone else's shoots and ladders. In many ways, I'm starting to think it was in fact a scheme that Todd and Harry set up, because I think that they announced the family coming to build that anticipation and hopefully get more people eager, like the people who are not rabid racists out there, eager for them to come. And then they knew that, like, okay, they're not going to get this security and it's going to cause, that type of backlash perhaps. And it has. I have seen, some things. And there is a statement, and I just kind of want to go through the statement and let's see what it says. So the statement says that Prince Harry warned of an Invictus Games attack, that terrorists could create a mass casualty event if he is targeted at the Invictus Games, and his private security company warned the government of that. So in a 40-page risk assessment, they found that Prince Harry faced an elevated risk in the UK, where five of the six known homegrown terror plots against him originated. And we were all there for that. We all saw those people that went to jail, and it was crazy back then. But the risk assessment has been done again, a fresh one, and we are still finding these same risks. So it says that at least 4 individuals responsible for those threats are thought to be out of prison and their whereabouts are unknown. So that's really scary when you're someone who is as high profile and highly visible as the Sussexes are. And then you also add that, the factor of the children having, going with them. It doesn't make for a good recipe for success when the terror threat is that high and then they don't have the additional security that they need. So the report goes on to detail dozens of threats and potential attacks facing the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, and includes an Al-Qaeda document which called for the of Prince Harry. The document was submitted to the UK Security Committee, tasked with deciding whether Harry should get state-funded protection when he travels to the UK. We all know that this is RAVEC, and we all know that this is not state-funded protection. This is something that Harry has offered again and again and again to fund and pay for. The whereabouts of 4 of the convicted individuals associated with the terrorist threats against Harry are currently unknown to the private security firm employed by the Sussexes. Yeah, so, really, really crazy stuff, really scary stuff. And the fact that their families don't think anything of this tells me everything that I need to know. And I also think that Harry was aware. I don't think that he is aloof in any sense. I don't think that he is unaware that this was going to happen or that these threats existed. I feel like he played it really brilliantly in not making it a whole thing, but also I think that Meghan and the kids were never gonna go, to be honest. Now I'm thinking about it like several moves ahead, and like, of course they were gonna say no. Of course they were gonna say no. How would we in our heads even imagine RAVEC with members of the royal household in RAVEC? How would we ever think that there was a chance that they would say yes? And so if we never thought that, Harry absolutely never thought that. He never thought for a moment that the rabid people that hate him and his wife so much in that royal household would ever grant them security. I know Harry knew that. So this whole thing, he saw probably 4 or 5 moves ahead and knew what was going to happen. And yeah, I think played pretty brilliantly into his hands. Cookies and Cream says, I'm so thankful Meghan and the kids aren't going to the UK. Prayers of protection and safety for Prince. See, now why is my chat acting crazy? Hold on, let me adjust this a little bit. Okay, I guess it's just going to be cut off regardless. OBS, man. I want to speak to your manager. This is just so unacceptable. Anyways, Thank you, cookies and cream. I agree. I agree. I am so thankful. And TBH, TB completely H, I think that this was the game plan to begin with. I think that this is exactly what they anticipated, and they knew for a fact that this was going to happen. And ipso facto, here we are. So, yeah, if that's the case, then well played, sir. Well played. And I'll always give credit where credit is due. The Sussexes are still my very favorite people in the entire world. And yeah, I will support them from afar, but I will support them always, even when I don't agree. Um, you know who I won't support? Norway. Norway is having like the roughest, literally like the roughest summer on record. And it's not even funny. Like it's really not funny. It's really not funny. But I wanted to get into this whole Norway kerfuffle because I've covered this before, right? In what was that called? Norway, you in danger, girl. Child, y'all need to get it together. Like, what is going on? Norway's monarchy is in shambles, honey. I turned around, there was a white refrigerator in Norway's kitchen. Like, a white refrigerator. Oh, honey, get your shoes on. Let's go find you a home, Norway. Look, if you haven't been following this piping hot Norwegian tea, the future queen of Norway's son has been sentenced to 4 years in the clink. Can you imagine? Can you imagine being Marius Borg Høiby right now, sitting in a jail cell while the rest of your family are enjoying their, I don't know, braised octopus and jellied herring or whatever? Like, it's gotta suck. It's gotta suck waking up every day and for one or two like fleeting moments, think that you're gonna awaken to servants and gold leaf and trim everywhere. But instead, you wake up and you're in this not too uncomfortable jail cell with a bunch of men who have done terrible things just like you. I mean, I've seen Norway's jails and they're not that bad. They're not that bad. It's kind of like a ghetto IKEA in there. Let's see. Binga, he's persevering the Invictus Games that hopefully nothing happened to the veterans and their families. Yeah, he is. And we're glad. We're super, super, super glad about that. But yeah, no, so, you know, it's all just really shocking. Like, this summer has given us all kinds of twists and turns. And this Norwegian Crown in Crisis thing, the episode's called Crown in Crisis. It's not called You in Danger, Girl. But you are in danger, Norway. The whole story is just very shocking. And, you know, y'all know me. I'm a historian. I love to look into the little monarchies. Well, they're not that little. The Norwegian monarchy is not that little. But I love looking into these monarchies and, like, seeing what's all going on. And these folk, these Norwegians, are on some Monaco, right? They're on their Monaco royal family, Prince Albert, the Kasaragis. They are on some crazy stuff this summer. And it's like, okay, what's actually happening? So if you haven't seen my previous video on this, definitely go and check that out. It's just a quick synopsis. It's not really like a full or detailed breakdown. Just a quick synopsis of what's what. And at that time, we were awaiting Marius's verdict. He had 40 charges filed against him, ranging from SA to drug charges, battery on law enforcement, terroristic threats. This guy is just a whole menace to society. There was a period of time there for like, I don't know, like 2 years straight that he was just getting arrested every 3 to 5 business days. It seemed like it was so crazy. Like, the palace was trying to scramble to like rein him in. They were initially trying to keep a stiff upper lip about the whole situation, but eventually the pressure got so great that they had to publicly distance themselves, but not privately, as the story goes. And sure enough, his mom eventually went on record. His mom is the crown princess Mette-Marit, future queen of Norway, by the way. So his mom eventually went on to say that they're going to support him privately. So they're not like throwing him under the bus or anything like that. They're basically Prince Andrewing him, right? And I want to replay that video because it does speak volumes about what's going on here, where, you know, he's I don't even know like how to like understand people like this, but it is understandable that his family is wrapping their arms around him. After all, he's a young adult. He's their child. He's like 28, 29. He's not even like 30. And I'm not a parent, but I can understand not throwing your child away over his shenanigans. And it's got to be really hard for like him and the other siblings, because there are half siblings who are in line to the throne, right? They're the quote unquote legitimate heirs of the throne. And I hate to use that term, legitimate or not, because obviously it's not his fault that he didn't have the father's royal blood, but that's neither here nor there, right? His mom is still going to be a queen. He should at least have something, but nope. Marius has never had any titles, never had any type of royal duties bestowed upon him. He was just there as Mette-Marit's child, and he had like privileges, so he could attend the events and stuff, but he was never actually like sent on a diplomatic mission, a royal duty, or anything like that. So yeah, crazy times. And you know, this by no means is like laying a foundation for mercy. You know, they should throw him under the jail. And for my 2 cents, but yeah, I probably can't even begin to understand the pressure that royal children are under, versus the every other type of child. And even that doesn't carry, you know, so much weight anymore. Being like a royal and everything else, it doesn't carry the weight it used to, but there are still so many expectations put on them. So you really do have to ask yourself, is it nature? Is it nurture? Like, what is really happening when a person who has everything is really exposed, or just kind of puts themselves in this position to where they're making a bunch of bad choices and no one can seem to understand why? Hey, Arrington, welcome to the chat. Good to see you. The moment they announced the verdict for DM was going to be issued this week, I knew H was not allowing them into that circus. The verdict for DM? Who's DM? Man, I wish my chat was not cut off like this. It is so annoying. Like, you've got to be kidding me. But whatever. I don't know who DM is, but what verdict are you talking about? Now I'm intrigued. Hey, Para, welcome to the chat. Nice to see you, hun. Happy Saturday. So glad you're here. But yeah, no. So yeah, the nature versus nurture argument in Marius's case is so relevant here. Oh my God, speaking of nature versus nurture, have you guys seen this documentary? It's called Three Identical Strangers. Okay, Arlington Daily Mail. Okay, thank you so much for that, chat. I was like, who the heck is DM? I mean, who cares? It's so, the point is moot, right? It's a moot point. So DM, they can, I don't know, jump off into space. Who cares? But no. So, okay, back to the nature versus nurture argument, right? So I watched this one documentary, and it's called Three Identical Strangers. And it's horrible. It's horrible. If you haven't seen it, look it up. It's insanity. So this horrifying, like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde of an adoption agency called themselves performing the nature versus nurture experiment, where they took triplets and separated them shortly after birth. One was given to a well-to-do couple. I believe they were physicians. One was given to a middle-class couple. I believe that set of parents were teachers. And then one was given to a lower-income couple, where that set of parents, I believe the mom was a stay-at-home mom, and then the dad had like a mom and pop shop that he ran. So they did this experiment to see if nature versus nurture determined the characteristics of a child into adulthood. It was so messed up, y'all. They had these kids living within like a 3 or 4, maybe 5 block radius of each other, and never told any of the families what was going on, never notified them, never told the kids anything that, oh, like, yeah, one day you might run into somebody that looks exactly like you. Like, they didn't say nothing. And they just went to their houses every couple of weeks or so to check on the kids, see how they were progressing under the disguise of, oh, we were just trying to make sure everything's okay. Do you guys need anything? Yada, yada. But in reality, they were conducting these experiments and taking that data, analyzing the data to see if there were any behavioral patterns, similarities, differences among the kids. Ultimately, they were caught when one of the triplets went to the same junior college that the other one had dropped out of the year before. He had just happened to get to the campus. It was complete coincidence. Everybody was hugging him, running up to him, greeting him warmly because the other triplet was very well liked on that campus, and then he dropped out and people were bummed about that. So when they saw what they thought was him again, they were like, oh my God. One person, he said one girl ran up to him and just kissed him squarely on the mouth. He didn't know what was going on. So he gets to his room, and the triplet that dropped out, his former roommate, took one look at the other brother, who was now his current roommate, and said, you wouldn't happen to be adopted, would you? Oh my gosh. And from there, it all just unraveled. Yes, he was adopted. Oh, what's your name? This is my name. Where do you live? Where'd you grow up? This is where I live. This is where I grew up. They got to a payphone. They rushed to a payphone because this is like the 70s. And they got to a payphone, called the brother who had dropped out and told him, like, oh my God, you are not going to believe this. Your twin is literally my roommate now at the university. Can we meet up? Where are you? And so the brothers meet each other that night for the first time. And it's like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I have a long lost brother, da 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 da. And they didn't know that they were triplets. They only thought at that time that they were twins. So nobody knew what was going on. It was just that these two twins had ran into each other and now they reunited, and the story was picked up everywhere. It was so sensational. Arrington, let's see. Let's see. Maybe if I move, does that work? Does that help? Oh, that helped. Okay, great. Beautiful People's Duchess, do you think that folks raised with no limits, no home training have greater potential to be sadistic? Ooh, now this is a good psychology question that I love. This is such a great psychology question. Um, I don't believe that the current set of studies, the current set of what we know now of nature and nurture, I don't think it's complete because there are just too many people. And whenever they do these test cases, it's only on a small group, a small portion, a fraction of the population. So there's no way to know definitively whether or not someone's upbringing will lead to sadism. Now, there are markers that you can definitely look at and say, yeah, of course they were going to turn out that way because look how they were raised. If you're raised with parents who do brutal things to others and to you, if you were raised watching your father abuse your mother or vice versa, if you were raised in any sort of environment that breeds contention and, well, sadism, then you're more likely to be that way. But then there are people who have grown up in that type of environment and turned out opposite of that. So there's no real way to tell. I think it's all just very much based on a person to person, a case by case basis. There are things that will always, be risk factors, but no, I don't know that for sure home training will correlate directly to how you turn out. Because there's people who were raised by doctors and they go ahead and become criminals, and then there's people who were raised with a very horrible lifestyle that turned around and became doctors. So we don't know. But good question. I love that. Yeah, so this is a crazy story. It was picked up by the newspapers everywhere. And then ultimately, of course, the third triplet brother sees one of those newspapers that everyone thinks are long lost twins. The headlines are long lost twins reunited at last and all of this. And then at this point, he just couldn't believe it. He's looking at a picture of two other guys that are clearly his brothers, absolutely clearly. He thought it was him looking at himself as he described it. And he's obviously adopted. So long story short, the three then get together. And it's really beautiful. They're celebrating, finding each other. They're celebrating. They're really popular. They're everywhere. They're on talk shows. They are everywhere. They're just really popping at this point. They've garnered a lot of national attention. They're doing ads, they're doing commercials, they're doing talk shows, they're making some money for themselves. They're living in this apartment. And then ultimately they open this restaurant that was also quite popular and popping for the time. But then the questions start. Wait, what the heck? Hold on now. Wait a minute. You live just over here and I live just over there and you live just down over here. What the heck is really going on? Why aren't we together? Like, what happened? Who separated us? So they all go to the adoption agency and ask the adoption agency, like, what's all going on? And the adoption agency was so rude to them. They brushed them off. They didn't have anything to say. They were very flippant. They weren't apologetic in any way, shape, or form. They promised them answers and then, basically shoved them out of the door. And I remember in the documentary, it was raining. It was a very heavily raining night. And one of the parents forgot their umbrella in the room. So they went back into the adoption agency and they saw that all of the people in the adoption agency, the heads of the adoption agency, they were like celebrating. They were like toasting. They were not worried at all. So that was a really eye-opening moment. The adoption agency was eventually shuttered, but now it's like the records and stuff are heavily guarded by some like university trust behind a bunch of red tape. They can't get to it. They can't get any of those answers that they were seeking. It's really unfortunate. And one of the brothers, unfortunately, succumbed to the shenanigans, succumbed to the pain of all of those unanswered questions. So he ended up, taking himself out of the equation. And it's really unfortunate. He had also had some issues with drugs and alcohol. He had previously been on trial for a homicide-related situation. So it was crazy. But what they found ultimately was that it didn't matter the socioeconomic class of the parents. All three brothers had the exact same personality. Without ever having met each other, they all smoked the same cigarettes. They all liked the same type of woman. They all dressed the same. They all clearly kept their hair in the exact same hairstyle. None of the brothers thought to shave or close cut or nothing. They had the exact same everything. So it was really, in this case, a matter of nature, because no matter who the parents were and no matter who the parents, the brother that got into trouble with the law was also, I think, the brother that had been raised by the doctors. So Arrington, to go back to your point, that brother had all of the trappings of a good life and still found himself on the wrong side of the law. So crazy story, y'all. Again, three identical strangers. If you haven't seen this documentary, it is so worth the watch. They deserve recompense for what they went through. And as it turns out, that agency did that with tons of sets of twins and triplets. Like that, they weren't the only one. Every set of twins and triplets that came into this agency, this adoption agency, they did the exact same thing. They set them up in separate households, not too far from each other, and never told the parents about it to observe what the nature versus nurture argument looked like. So I don't know, they found some of the doctors years later and tried to interview one of them, but she was still quite flippant. She was still quite like, what did we do wrong? What did we do wrong? We're trying to push the needle forward, yada, yada. It was just a crazy, like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde argument. It was wild. But anyways, that tangent was to say, with Marius, you really just can't understand like why he did what he did, right? So in his case, his maternal grandfather, his dad, they were crazy. They were crazy criminal types. His mom was also deeply involved in the shady underbelly type situation of Norway. Like, she was no saint either. So you could say that these things bred that environment, bred that lifestyle out of him, but that's not the case, because he has been in the royal fold since he was a kid. Since he was a kid. After her last like abusive relationship ended, his mom, Princess Mette-Marit, but then just Mette-Marit, moved to a place and lived with a boyfriend till they split in 99, but then shortly after that met Prince Haakon in 2000. So Marius was born in 1997. He was 3 years old when his mom and Prince Haakon met, and she moved in to live with him in Oslo. So, I mean, can you really say that from the ages of birth to 2 years old that he was that deeply impacted by the situations around him? You could, if you make the argument that kids pick up and they're more attentive of things than at an earlier age than like, yeah, I would say that sure, he definitely absorbed all of the crazy that was going on around him. But if you're talking about like conscientious memory, then no, he wouldn't have remembered. He doesn't like clearly remember the time from him being 1 and 2 and 3 years old, unless something very traumatic happened to him at that point and then he somehow remembers it all these years later. But no, he wouldn't have remembered that. We don't know what was all going on, but the fact of the matter is, very, very, very early on, he was exposed to the crown and that lifestyle. So I don't know. His dad is a well-known fixture of the nightlife and party scene in Oslo in the 90s. And, the rest is history, but his dad was there. Like, his dad was there. Despite the criminal background, his dad was a steadfast presence in his life. He's also never publicly trashed anybody. He's never said anything spoken out against the family or his relationship with Mette-Marit or the Norwegian royal family. Like, his dad, despite being, for all intents and purposes, a scumbag, is not that type of scumbag. He got it together, and reports are that he later became a businessman. So he's doing very well, so on and so forth. So, how much debauchery from the people who raised him can you really say that this is why this is happening? I think his dad trained to become a financial analyst and built like a successful career. So he remarried in 2004. I mean, they've since divorced, but he got himself together. And Marius, I mean, he's acting like fatherlessness, like he has this very fatherless behavior about him, but his dad was an active participant in his life. And he remained close to him. They co-parented with Prince Haakon very well. He put aside whatever nonsense he was dealing with to co-parent, and it worked. So, I don't know. Mette-Marit, she is going to have her own little thing. I was going to do this whole live dedicated to like the verdict and then Mette-Marit and her nonsense with the Epstein stuff, because that was happening in tandem. But I'm going to break it into two because I wanted to talk about the breaking news with Harry and Meghan first. And now I don't really have like the desire to do like a 3-hour live stream to include all of Mette-Marit's nonsense, because the shenanigans never cease with these people. They act like they're just so like prim and proper, but to be honest, they're not. And people clocked Mette-Marit's tea from the very beginning. They had this, oh my God, like, how are you marrying this woman? She's got this unsavory background. She's clearly into this drug culture. She's clearly into these types of men. Like, this is her type. Like, how is she appropriate for the crown? Like, what are you talking about? She's a baby mama. Like, there was all this stuff. And not that being a baby mama is anything bad, but in their eyes, right, for the crown, for a crown princess, future queen, the fact that she had a previous son by someone who had been imprisoned, and all of those things were a very big factor in why people were so against this union. So she did a lot, and I want to get into that, but we're gonna break this up into two. So yeah, no. Marius is just running amok. He's definitely running amok. He has definitely brought such disrepute to the royal house in Norway. Um, Luckily for them, they never gave him princely status. They never gave him royal duties. He was always just a commoner that had a mom who was married to the crown prince. Like that was always the distinction. There was never any like confusion about that. Um, hey, Rhonda McKnight, welcome to the chat. Let's see. No one really knows what happens behind the scenes. What the public sees on the outside is only window dressing. Yeah, I completely agree. I think that it's really important to like make that distinction. Harry told us in Spare that all that glitters isn't gold, and that what we see is definitely just not an accurate reflection of what is actually going on, right? So I trust that. I agree with that. I think that we know probably absolutely nothing about what's really happening, that we just see the headlines and then we're like, oh, well, okay. We have to either take it at face value or try to decipher in between the lines, try to read in between the lines. I always try to read in between the lines on things. And I know personally that like none of these people, first of all, they're not like moral people. They're all doing this thing, I call it duper's delight, where they go out in public, they're waving, they're smiling, they're making it seem like they're these really upstanding citizens, but when they go home at night, they are on their Prince Andrew. We've all seen that they're on their Prince Andrew. The world is run by Prince Andrews and Jeffrey Epstein's. Like, that's just the fact of the matter. Like, yeah, no. Behind closed doors, I've never, ever for one day thought that these people were living good lives. These are miserable people. Even with all their money and everything else. I mean, yeah, it's a luxurious life. It's a pampered life. It's a life stress-free in terms of how you're going to pay your bills. But with respect to them personally, like for me personally, I couldn't imagine how horrible it is to be like a racist, and then like every day you're just surrounded by what you hate. You're triggered 24/7. Every time you wake up, there's a black person on the TV, there's a black person outside, there's a brown person over here, there's somebody that you don't like. You're forced to either sit next to, look at, whatever the case. So that's a tortured existence, in my opinion. If you have a problem with people who are different from you, if you're racist, ableist, homophobic, whatever the case, xenophobic, whatever, and you have to spend your life surrounded by those things that you are just so against, like that's a tortured existence. I don't envy that. Um, but yeah, no, he definitely did not leave anything up to the imagination. That man was getting arrested day in, day out. It would be literally the next day he'd get released for some violent assault or some other nonsense, and then like 2 days later he'd be right back in jail, right back in handcuffs. They're drug testing him. Of course, he's showing positive for every drug under the sun. Like it's it's crazy. And if you didn't know him, you'd call it like fatherless behavior. But actually, he's just being a douche. He's just on his Jeffrey Baratheon. That's all. He's on his King Joffrey. And Joffrey's always a really good analogy when it comes to royal families in general, but in this case, very, very fitting. Very fitting. I asked Rhea, you guys know Rhea, you guys love Rhea, who is married to a Norwegian man, what Norwegians think about everything going, and she's moving to Norway too. So I was asking her, like, what do you think about everything going on? What's like the temperature over there? And she said that they can't stand him, that he is persona non grata in Norway, that people are just about sick and tired of him and his mama and their nonsense. She said that they watched him for years doing that stuff, terrorizing the towns, going around assaulting the women, assaulting really whoever. I mean, he's like basically the Chris Brown of Norway. So like just assaulting everybody, acting like he's invisible and untouchable, and just again on his King Joffrey. So people are not really happy with what's going on. He's never really had like a good solid like put a foot forward, like a good foot forward. He has always been in the shadows. Um just ripping and running. And who told you to be out there ripping and running? Who told you to be out there terrorizing people, going Jack the Ripper on folk? Who told you to be out there on your what was his name? A. Holmes? Why are you out there playing hoe games and your mama is a whole about to be queen of a country? Like, that's what I want to know. What would even possess you to be that drunk with power? To think that you don't have to live by the rules? Come on now. You have to live by the rules of polite society. And it's crazy because even in the echelon that you occupy, it doesn't mean that you can just go around assaulting people and doing whatever. I don't even think 4 years is enough, to be honest. And a lot of Norwegians agree. The consensus in Norway is that he should have been thrown under the bus or under the jail. V. Thomas, welcome to the chat. V. Thomas says, please don't compare Chris Brown to this lunatic. Chris was not that satanic. V. Thomas, thank you so much for the chat. Welcome. Happy Saturday. I'm going to have to respectfully disagree. I don't think that there's hardly anything more satanic than what Chris did to Rihanna. That was pure evil. Um, Pure evil. If that wasn't Satan, then what is? So, yeah, no, a lot of Norwegians don't think that 4 years is enough. He's been handed a 4 year sentence. Of course, they've appealed the whole thing. Where's that timeline? Here we go. So, July 2020, he was convicted in the Oslo court on June 15th. The prosecutors asked for a 7 year, 7 month sentence. That was March 19th. The trial concluded. June 15th, the Oslo District Court convicted him formally of 34 charges, including 2 counts of SA. And then they sentenced him to 4 years in prison. And then in July, just a couple days ago, or I think just 2 days ago, both the defense and the prosecution appealed the sentence, and his pretrial release is currently under review. So Norway has this like weird law where if a person is in pretrial, they can still be out on bail. He was kept for obvious reasons, but now his pretrial detention is up on July 13th. So he has an opportunity to be released on July 13th pending the outcome of the appeals that his attorney and the state attorneys have filed. The state attorneys was like 4 years. We said 7. We said almost double that. So like, what's going on? So both sides have appealed the ruling. The defense obviously asking for leniency, and the prosecution asking for closer to the 7 years and 7 months that they asked for. Cookies and cream, he should have been locked up for life and the key thrown away. Who cookies and cream? You talking about Marius or you talking about Chris Brown? Because both of them should get deported to Guantanamo. I just don't, there's just nothing more evil to me. I'm sorry. I know you guys love his music and don't think too bad of whatever, but like there's nothing more evil than that. You saw those pictures. He went ham. He went satanic on her. And then it's not as if that was his only thing. It wasn't like he just made one mistake in his young life. What was he, 19, 20 at the time? It's not like he just made one mistake in his life and then gave his life to God afterwards. Karuchi has a permanent restraining order against him for the same reason. And judges don't just grant people permanent restraining orders. Like, come on now, let's just be real. Let's be objective. I know you like him. I know he's your friend. I know you like his music, but let's be objective about the things that he has done and the harm that he has caused and whether or not he should be anywhere other than prison. Because if that was me, I'd have been in jail. That was me running around popping people with bottles and doing everything I wanted to, cracking folks over the head with bottles and doing whatever I wanted to. And I would be labeled a habitual offender, and I would probably be in jail for life under the 3 strikes you're outlaw. Like, come on now. Yeah, V. Thomas, I do hope this guy gets 10 years or more. He abused multiple women. Yeah, I mean, Norway, you know how they are. They're more like, "Oh, we should rehabilitate." And then he's also, royal adjacent. So there's a whole layers and layers. There's several layers to this. But yeah, Norway, they believe in like rehabilitation versus like hard labor, hard incarceration. That's why their prisons look like that. The prisons look like, shabby IKEAs because they don't want to like grind you down into nothing. They still think something of their citizens despite the fact that that person is incarcerated. They still want to help. And I like that about them. I mean, people shouldn't have to go through like brutal labor because you're never going to rehabilitate anybody by beating them every day and making them, work for free for the state and doing that's just abuse. I don't think that that's helpful. I'm not saying that they don't deserve said punishment. They deserve probably worse. But at the end of the day, if your goal is to rehabilitate and put these people back out on the streets, then you're going to have to come up with something that's a little bit more conducive to that. You can't institutions really break people hard, and they are not fit for the streets anymore. They're not fit for like proper society after that type of hardness and that type of like, back-breaking labor and all that. They become very disenfranchised and disillusioned and angry, and they tend to take that out on the first person they see. So yeah, no, definitely agree. Should be under the jail. I mean, 40 charges, and he copped to 34 of them. Look, anyone that knows me knows that my barometer is 34 felonies and 1 grape conviction, 1 essay. Like, that is my barometer for whether or not a person should be or shouldn't be considered like a violent thug. And previous to 2024, I used to think that if you had a criminal record, well, that spoke for itself. If you've had an assault charge or whatever, you're a violent thug. Like, that speaks for itself. As to what kind of person you were and whether or not you deserve a chance. For example, like, okay, if you have like a series of thefts, but the thefts are for things like baby food, formula, diapers, that is quite different in people's eyes than white collar crimes, blue collar crimes, the Bernie Madoff Ponzi scheme type crimes, where you're just greedy. One was done out of necessity, and you can completely understand why that parent was stealing baby items. You can completely understand that it was necessity. You can kind of understand where that parent was coming from. But there's no excuse, on the other hand, for the Bernie Madoffs that just steal that for no reason. They work regular jobs. They could get a high-paying 6-figure finance job and be fine. But no. They want to go into good old-fashioned American greed and rip people off. And that deserves the fullest punishment to the fullest extent of the law. But post 2024, nowadays, my new barometer is whether or not you have 34 felonies and a grape conviction. And if the answer is no, then you're still a better human being and a better person entirely. And I'm not going to judge you because you're better than the current leader of the free world. So for me, if you're a convicted felon and you have like 33 felonies, you're still a better person. You're still a better human being than the person at the very top right now. If you have anything less than 34 felonies, then I consider you perfectly fine now. And Marius here has 34 and 2 SA charges. So even by this radical nonsense barometer that I have now, where 34 felonies is the threshold, he meets that and exceeds that because he has 34 felonies and 2 grape convictions, which is insane, bruv. Utterly insane. He was wilding out hard. And for like no reason, again, no reason. There was a period back there, just arrested every day, every other day. And he wouldn't have been caught had he not been like physically assaulting everybody along the way. He could have just been having his little parties, doing his little drugs, doing whatever he was doing, and just kept it pushing like the royals in the UK do, right? Like Camilla's son and them. They all do their little illicit, illegal stuff and just keep it pushing. Nobody says anything and everybody just keeps it under the radar. But Marius here likes to fight. He's an angry drunk. He's a violent drunk. He gets high and then he likes to fight. V. Thomas says, this guy appears to have abused his assumed power because of his association with the Norway royals. If everyone knows of his bad behavior, then he just learned that he could get away with, yeah. That's the whole thing. They'd release him, like this man was, who else could get arrested on Thursday, get out on Friday, be arrested on Saturday, get out on Sunday, be arrested. Like he was getting arrested every other day for like a year. What the heck are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like it's crazy because he did in fact learn that. And his mom was aiding him. His mom was enabling. Yes, that's the word I was looking for. Enabling. Exactly. His mom was enabling him. She was there. She welcomed. She was like the greeter for these very unsavory characters that he was bringing into a royal residence. Mind you, a royally funded residence. From the public purse, he was throwing these parties. So that's the other thing is like, okay, I could understand if perhaps he was just doing it on his own time. And as a titled royal, he is not entitled to any public money. It's not like he should get any funding for this, right? Right? Like, tell me he's not entitled to any public funding. But no, he was. He was. So he was getting like 20,000 Norwegian kroner a month, which is roughly about $2,033, which isn't much. It's not much because obviously the European royals live far more conservatively than the British royals. So it wasn't like thousands or anything like that, but it was enough. It's enough to get you lit every day, apparently. And then also, he didn't have to pay for anything. So in addition to his $2,000 a month, he lived for free at these royal residences. So it's not as if he had bills. So $2,000 a month when you don't have bills, you can spend $2,000 a month on whatever you want. Alcohol, party favors, whatever. So it's more than enough. And then obviously he's a crown prince, so the 2,000 is reported. And how much was he getting without being reported? You know, how much was his mom just kind of balling up and folding into his hands before he went out for the night, you know? What that personal account looked like, what that personal bank account looked like. And why is there any money there? Because he doesn't even have a job. Well, he did have a job when he was like, you know, early on, but he quickly ditched that for the life of crime. And I mean, him and his mom do share that affinity. She is enabling him because she too is just like him. Mette-Marit has this crazy backstory as far as being like the Marjorie Harvey of Norway. And if you know anything about Marjorie Harvey's story, you know that she has been a professional kept woman basically her entire life. She's currently married to Steve Harvey. They've been married forever. But prior to Steve Harvey, she was in a relationship with this very well-known drug kingpin, Lori Harvey's dad. Huge drug kingpin, very active, you know, the whole nine. She's a baddie. Marjorie is such a baddie. I love her. I love Lori Harvey. She's always been a baddie. Beautiful woman, right? But yeah, she and Mette-Marit share the same backstory. The only thing that makes Mette-Marit's situation a little bit different is that in Norway, it's so difficult to obtain drugs. So when they found out that she was with a drug kingpin and had this child by him and the child was now doing all this stuff, a lot of people just did not accept that. A lot of people came back with the, oh, I told you so's. I told you so's. You can't just marry a woman like that. Look where she came from. Look what's going on now. We told you. Like there was a whole lot of, I told you floggings in the headlines in Norway. Like, it was crazy. But unlike in the UK, there wasn't much that they could actually do. Like the press, there's not much that they could actually like influence in the way of like outrage, public outrage, sabotage. They couldn't sabotage like the royal wedding, for example. There was nothing anyone could do. People just accepted it because Norwegians aren't as violent as William and them. So they just let them get married. They just kept it. They were outraged, but there was nothing that the Norwegian press could do as far as like whipping up that hate. And they ultimately just got married. They didn't orchestrate their very own version of Megxit or anything with Mette-Marit being the M in that situation. The Norwegians just allowed them to be, and they were just happy to see their future king finally be wed and settle down. So they handled things a bit differently. They accepted Marius, who was a previous issue, and that would have been something that got any other royal woman disqualified from the race, especially if she just had like a kid and it wasn't by this like nefarious character and there wasn't like this devious backstory. Let's just say that Meghan had a kid, right? That would have been a disqualifier. That would have been the one thing that they could say, oh, no, 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 no. The bloodline has to be pure. No, 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 no. They would have definitely dismissed that. Forget about, what's her name? Beatrice and her husband's situation, which is the exact same with that baby from a previous relationship. But no, no, no. That's different, right? For Meghan, it would have been a complete disqualifier. That would have been the one thing that they could finally say, oh, look, she's not perfect. Look, she has a kid. But of course, Mette-Marit's privilege and all the other factors protected her from that type of outcome, and they allowed the two to wed. And it's reared its ugly head again. It's reared its ugly head again. This whole like drug culture that they had, the backstory that they had, it's reared their ugly head. This is why I think that she was very much not just susceptible to a person like Epstein, but like thirsty, like calling out to him. I think that relationship was so much deeper than she said. And that's why I want to get into it really well, because she is basically the Fergie of that royal family. She's just lied through her teeth about the whole thing, up and down. I mean, they caught her dead to rights, red-handed. Those emails that were released in January caught her red-handed in so many lies, because previous to that, she was just about, oh, well, no, you don't understand. It was just a very brief, short, surface level friendship, just in passing. We just have some mutual associates, yada, yada. No, ma'am. You were all up and through that man's house. You were all up and through his houses. You were all up and through his life. You spent a significant amount of time with him. And the emails betray you, princess. So now she's in this whole thing where she's had to not only answer for that, but apologize and all the things. And she's kind of pulling this Kate move where she's like, oh, but I'm sick. Hold on, I'm sick. The only thing with her is that she is sick. I believe her 1,000%. She is absolutely sick. She definitely has cystic fibrosis, which is a debilitating disease. It is a disease that attacks the lungs. In your lungs, you have this natural kind of mucus sac that protect and shield the lungs. But with people with cystic fibrosis, that shield, that defensive layer is very thick. It thickens and it hardens. And if you can imagine not being able to fully expand your lungs, how that shortness of breath feels, that really uncomfortable, you can't quite get enough air feels. So that's how Mette-Marit now, she has been on oxygen. We've all seen the pictures with her on oxygen. I think I have one actually. Let me see. We've all seen those pictures of like her with the oxygen tanks doing her royal duties, which is very brave. And I'm not taking that away from her. She's not pulling a Kate in the traditional sense of she's not sick and she's lying that she is. She's definitely not lying that she is. She is absolutely not okay. She's going around. I don't think anyone would do this or go to this extreme, for the sympathy. She's very sick. My sister dated a guy that she was going to marry, and he had CF, and he passed away when he was 42, waiting on an implant, waiting on a lung transplant. So she is quite fortunate. It appears that she has gotten her lung transplant and she is doing well. So thank goodness for that. But yeah, this disease is quite debilitating. And you can't just, of all the things to fake, it wouldn't be CF. Okay. It would not be CF. There's just too many horrifying things that you go through with CF and the oxygen and all that. I don't think that she's doing this to like shirk responsibility for being in them files. I don't think that she's doing this as a result of trying to deflect attention away. I think that it's just naturally deflecting that attention away because she is ill, because it is so, noticeable. So I think that's what we're dealing with here. Two things are true in this case. She's quite ill, and it's unfortunate that she does have to, expose that and keep people in her business on that matter. But also I can understand why she does, because people are obviously seeing the oxygen intake. They're seeing her condition decline and wanting to know. And I think as a member of, if you're public and you're paying them taxes to survive, you kind of have the right to know. So yeah, it's all very, it's unfortunate. But Marius he's been doing the wrong thing. And I don't think that his mom being ill is any excuse. I mean, they've let him out of jail before saying that, oh, my mom was ill. But then as soon as he got out, he broke the law again. As soon as he got out, he broke the law again. So he can't be trusted. And they've given him like so many opportunities to get himself together. And he did try to like apologize and say like, oh, I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know, I feel like it's not really like, it doesn't really hit the way it should, because his behavior doesn't align with those words. He issued this apology in 2024. He was stating that he had dependency issues and really bad mental health and blah, blah, blah. He tried to say that like he took some responsibility for his actions. And mind you, this was after he had the latest arrest before this apology was where he chased a person around with a knife in their apartment, destroying the entire apartment. There's pictures, just destroying the apartment, chasing the person around with the knife, which his mom had also gone through. His mom was in a relationship with this John Ogunby guy, and he also did the same thing while she was pregnant, by the way. So he did the same thing. And it's just kind of like serendipity. I think it's like duplicity. It's all of those things. It's like he is exactly, in my opinion, like his mom, and his mom just gets away with it because she's what they consider an attractive blonde woman. So anyways, long story short, he entered this apology. He put out this apology in 2024. Nobody was buying it. He was still doing all the things, acting crazy. His diplomatic passport was even revoked because he was running around, flashing it around, saying I'm on diplomatic duty, going into airports, telling everybody he was on diplomatic duty, going into other countries. Like he has perks, like diplomats have perks with that passport, right? So he would go to the other country and he'd be put up in like a diplomatic residence, for example. And the crown, Norway's crown, had no idea he was doing this. Allegedly, right? They allegedly didn't know nothing about nothing. They had no royal duties on the docket for him. He was just running around telling people that he was a diplomat, obtaining, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in perks, hotel stays, airport lounge stays, free things, yada, yada, under the guise of diplomatic duty. And, they eventually found that out. Somebody eventually called Norway and was like, is he on diplomatic duty? Because we are certainly putting him up in this hotel and giving him all these things. And surely his behavior was causing them to scratch their heads. That's probably the thing that gave it up the most, was that he was not acting like a diplomat. He was not in their residences behaving in such a manner that would make you think that he's on his best behavior, being that he's on a diplomatic mission. No, 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 no. He was acting crazy. And then he tried to use that same diplomatic passport when they went to arrest him. So that's what triggered everything, and the whole house of cards came crumbling down. I've never seen any royal or even a royal adjacent person have their diplomatic immunity revoked like this. Like, Norway, girl, the ghetto. The ghetto. Um, they just, they have a lot of explaining to do. The public, I think Norwegians are just so used to being like polite and not publicly loud. We don't really hear any like crazy Norwegian, like right wing media situations. We just, when you do read the headlines, it's just regular headlines about what's going on. They seem to be quite level headed about that. But they have expressed their discontent. They have expressed their discontent. And something does actually need to change, because you can't just have this guy running around essaying people and assaulting people. And most of his victims are women. The assault victims are women. The essay victims are women. Like, most of his victims, because he's a, skinny coward, a skinny, cowardly guy. Don't let, where is that? Hold on. I think it was this. No, 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 no. Wait, hold on. I'm getting it. Okay. Don't let this fool you. Don't let this fool you. Do not let the tattoos and the guns and the violence, don't let that fool you. This is a coward. This is a person who assaults primarily women. There's one guy who said that he made terroristic threats against him. So he does have that charge against him with a male victim, but his assault victims, his essay victims are women. So this is a coward. This is very scary punk, in my opinion. All the tattoos don't mean squat. I mean, look at these. These look like, first of all, these look like prison tats. Like, where did you even get these? These look like very low budget, cartoony tats drawn with the end of a paper clip being dipped in ballpoint ink and stabbed into your skin repeatedly until the tattoo form appeared. So no, he's just I think he thinks he's some kind of rock star or some kind of, VIP of some sort. But Marius, you are just a coward. And even though you're a young man and a lot of this was going on when you were young, there was just no reason. And again, your whole pattern of abuse, you've never, ever knucked if you buck towards a man, unless you were, just threatening him over the phone. But you've never gotten froggy with a dude. You've never. So what's really going on? So then he entered rehab. Of course, the classic celebrity move. Let me go on ahead and get into this rehab. Let me go on ahead and, make it seem like I'm trying to do my best and clean up and be good. And I promise I won't do no more, let me out. I won't do no more. So 2024, he entered rehab. It was undisclosed. I don't know anything about that. I don't think it helped at all, because sure enough, he's been doing all the things. He's still been doing all the things. We've seen recently, February of 2026 is the last time that he was arrested. And in that case, he had assaulted an ex and violated a restraining order. And just, again, this is February of 2026. In 2024, he had gone to rehab. He had made the apology. He had gone to rehab. He went on this apology tour. He made it seem like he was doing better. And no, you weren't. Sir, no, you weren't. You were doing the exact same things. You just found a way to do it under the radar. Your mom probably stepped in, probably had a lot to do with why you weren't arrested between the end of 2024 and then the beginning of 2026. I think probably a bit of that was the rehab. You were in physical custody of the rehab center, but you got out. I don't know how long it was, but he got out sometime at the end of 2025. And I'm sure that the rehab itself was not like inpatient, like in facility. So I'm sure that he could have gone home and gone on day trips and things like that. So who knows? Who knows actually what was all really going on? I don't know. I mean, I think the media needs to kind of grow a backbone here and really get the word out about these people because they are a danger to society. It's one thing if they were just like doing this to themselves, like committing debaucherous things amongst the aristocrats, and then the aristocrats are just accepting it because they also do debaucherous things and their fair share of shenanigans, but they are harming regular people. They are going around Norway harming regular people that are responsible for their lifestyle. These people pay your funds, they pay your bills. You can't just go around terrorizing a country. Like, that's not safe. Two things can be true at once. Mette-Marit is quite ill, and I feel bad for her for that. I hope she gets well. But she is also a vicious enabler, and she's also shielding this person from the responsibility that he has to the society, to pay back the debt, to pay back those crimes. So she too should be facing some charges. If this were any other type of person or any other type of case, she'd be a co-conspirator. She'd be a co-defendant in these trials. And I don't think that her illness should supersede the fact that she has actively harmed people in assisting her son to do so. You have to start taking the steps and doing the things that will convince people that you are actually repentant for what you did. Your thoughts, your actions, and your words all have to align. Hey, Sharon, good to see you. Happy Saturday. Hope you're doing well. I don't know. I don't know if we're ever going to see any repentance from these people. They seem completely unrepentant. Mette-Marit in particular, she just refuses. Again, we're going to watch the interview that she did with this one radio station, and she's just so unrepentant. She's just so, oh, Epstein fooled me. He deceived me. I was also somehow a victim. How are you a victim of the circumstances that you create? It's not like you were a child at the time that you met him. You were well into your 20s. So it makes no sense, really, that you're trying to use this aloof, undeveloped prefrontal cortex type of excuse. It just doesn't wash here, princess. With all due respect, it just does not wash. You need to come up with a realistic action plan on how you plan to right the wrong in legitimizing Epstein for all the other victims that he actually had, and then also shielding and protecting your son that enabled him to go on a crime spree for years in Norway, permanently disfiguring and scarring how many? Countless women. Well, not countless, there's a number, but but he has so many victims. You could probably fill that whole courtroom up with his victims. It's not fair to everybody else that he gets the skirt on that. And it's not fair that you also get no repercussions for what you've done to help him do that. There's no real saving these types of people, I guess. They're just, they're just weird. I'm going to follow the progression. I'm going to follow the outcome of the appeals. Oh, I know. Sharon, why do you have to say it? Now, Sharon, we know. Okay, and I'm sad too. I'm so sad. Like, oh my gosh. But you know what? The beat goes on. The beat goes on. We still have we still have other events that will come back even stronger for when the World Cup does return. When the games come back, we will come back stronger. So it's fine. But yeah, no, I will follow this progression. I know that there's a lot of you that really do enjoy like the other monarchies, the other royal families. So I'm going to continue bringing you the royal family tea, all the royal families, because this is so interesting. It's like, God, imagine, oh, wait, what was that? There we go. Imagine being in jail as a royal. Imagine if they held all the royals to this standard. That's what I'm kind of hoping. I'm hoping that this is a precedent. This sets some kind of precedent across Europe. I know that they're not in the EU anymore, or whatever, but like I'm still hoping that this sets some kind of like moral and social precedent such that people all across Europe start demanding accountability from their royal families. They should be demanding ledgers. They should be demanding like P&L reports, profit loss. They should be demanding like every single bit of documentation that their taxes help pay for. They should be demanding all of these things. And they should absolutely demand accountability and real prison time for individuals who break the law, regardless of their royal status. You know how they've been asking, what will happen if William broke a law? Or they're hinting. You know, the British press, they're hinting, they're hinting at what would happen because they know. They know that William is really just Marius here. They know that they could be swapped at any moment if the public were to get wind of what was really going on in that royal household. They would be outraged. Only in Europe, or excuse me, only in the UK, there's laws that protect their monarchy from ever having to deal with any of this stuff. That's why Andrew's not currently in jail. I think they arrested him just for show. Just for show. They're not going to do nothing. They arrested him just for show. And you see how they arrested him too. He got to drive there with his own security and protection and his Range Rover. Like that, was that really an arrest? Can we really call that an arrest? I think they just did that to embarrass him a little bit and to kind of like shut the people up because the public was so outraged. You know, they were really offended at the fact that he was still getting the royal treatment over there in Wood Farm. So they just, you know, let me do a little packaging to make it seem like things are really moving over here, but you see that nothing will ever happen. So I don't know, it'll be interesting. I'm gonna follow the progression, and then at some point we're gonna do the Mette-Marit live stream, and we're gonna go over all her videos talking about Epstein, shirking the responsibility, acting crazy, doing the most, pretending she don't know what's all going on, and the rest. It's incredible. So again, if you guys have not already watched my previous live stream, Norwegian Crown in Crisis, it's just a quick synopsis. It's not even like a whole, regular video, but get acquainted with that. It'll bring you up to date on the important highlights and bullet points. And then when we do our Mette-Marit live stream later on, you guys will be fully in the know. So, yeah, girl, crazy times. But gone ahead and join my live stream for that. If you're not following me on Instagram, I always post about the live streams upcoming on Instagram as well. So, yeah, Sharon. They arrested him for show. That was just a show. That was just all just to say, hey, look, we're trying to do something, because they don't want the people turning on them either. As in, like, the police that are out there on the streets every day, they don't want the people turning on them. So anyways, go ahead and follow me on my other social channels on Instagram, where I always announce the live stream. So you'll have all the live stream information if you're on Instagram. On Twitch, which we are simul streaming on Twitch now. So what up to all the Twitchers? I don't know. I don't know what you guys call yourselves, but shout out to Twitch. And then also please do follow me on TikTok, where I also just post like the live stream update. So it's not necessarily like, you're going to get anything from me over there on TikTok, but I'm there and I see y'all. And yeah, we can follow each other. I follow back on TikTok as well. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. I had a blast. I had such a blast. Like, this has been insanity, but I'm so glad that you guys are here with me for the insanity. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Please, I beg of you, be safe out there, be hydrated, drink your water, eat your cucumbers, eat your watermelon. Like, just stay hydrated. It is hot as hot out there. It is just, oof, goodness. Please take care of yourselves, be kind to yourselves, and until next time, bye for now.